The simplistic reform of the House of Lords is something I've spoken up against on a number of occasions. We're told that the House of Lords Hereditary Peer Bill is about fairness, about ending the feudal spectacle of aristocrats casting votes in our legislature by virtue of ancestry rather than merit. And yes, to many, the continued presence of 92 hereditary peers, vestiges of primogeniture and powdered wigs, seems anachronistic, but I would suggest that abolishing the hereditaries is not a victory for democracy. It is at best a cosmetic change, and at worst a cover for a much graver failing, the political colonisation of the Lords through unaccountable patronage. Hereditary peers are easy to criticise, perhaps even rightly so. No one should inherit the right to vote on our laws. And yes, this remnant of pre-modern governance makes the UK's second chamber resemble a cross between Lesotho and Hogwarts. But when we look more closely, a strange contradiction emerges. Many of these hereditary peers show up, they speak, they serve on committees, they debate legislation with far greater rigour than some of the so-called distinguished life peers, the ones who got their seats not by blood but by writing a cheque for the political party that they endorse. And by denying these 92 hereditary peers the right to contribute, to continue to contribute to our political life, we are actually denying them any future voice, because they can't stand for election in the House of Commons by virtue of their birth. So what we don't hear nearly enough about is the long roll of political appointees who almost never attend. I could list some. I have in the past. Individuals ennobled for services not to the country, but to a political party, usually via large donations or strategic flattery. These are the people who, having barely graced the red benches, retain the right to legislate for life. That is not meritocracy. That is cronyism in ermine. And since the Life Peerages Act of 1958, the idea was that merit would triumph. Yet again and again, time and again, Prime Ministers, both Conservative and Labour, have treated the Lords like an after-dinner reward system. Boris Johnson appointed Yevgeny Lebedev, son of a KGB agent, against security advice. Keir Starmer, who once railed against the Lords as indefensible, recently elevated 30 life peers, including advisers, donors, and even a former Chief of Staff. And what of Ruth Davison? A prominent life peer and appointed to great fanfare, she pledged to reform the Lords into a democratic chamber, yet her contributions since being ennobled have been precisely nil. Meanwhile, hereditary peers, despite the ludicrous lottery of their origins, are often present, active, and dare I say useful. And the quality of the debate in the House of Lords far exceeds anything that you hear in the House of Commons. We must ask, who is doing the work? Because if reform is about value, not virtue signalling, we are aiming our reforms at the wrong target. We're getting rid of precisely those people who are actually making a contribution. The Lords now numbers well over 800 members, the second largest legislative chamber in the world after the Chinese National People's Congress. If we remove the hereditary peers tomorrow, the Lords would still be grotesquely oversized. That brings us to the real opportunity: reducing its size, limiting the Prime Minister's ability to stack the chamber with loyalists, and placing the House of Lords Appointment Commission on a statutory footing with powers to block unsuitable nominees. The 2017 Burns report recommended precisely that: capping numbers, controlling party balance, linking new appointments to actual retirements. It was largely ignored. The Hereditary Peers Bill could be the legislative vehicle to implement these broader reforms, but instead we have 116 amendments, most tabled to improve the bill, not to improve the bill, but to obstruct it. Yes, some amendments are substantive, suggesting participation requirements, retirement ages, gender balance, but many are procedural shenanigans designed to scupper even modest change. So, just to be clear, the House of Lords needs reform, but of the right kind. Rather than obsessing over birthrights of a small, often active group, we should ask, why are unelected donors making laws? Why do Prime Ministers still enjoy limitless patronage? Why is there no attendance requirement, no retirement age, no penalty for absenteeism? Removing the hereditary peers is easy politics, it's symbolic. But symbolism doesn't fix substance. If a hereditary peer contributes meaningfully to national life, such as Lord Kinnell or Lord Carrington, often do, why should we bar them merely for an accident of birth when retaining dozens of disengaged former political bagmen who wouldn't recognise the select committee if it was offered? Why are the bagmen there and the hereditary peers who do the real work not? To abolish hereditary peers without reforming appointments, attendance and accountability is to redecorate the rot without fixing the foundation. So we shouldn't pretend that this is a democratic awakening. The Lords is not becoming more equal, it's just becoming more politically convenient. The debate we should have is not about how someone got in, but about what they do once they are there.